Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, very good. So we're on the last verse of the chapter 5, entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Page 255. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 14th day of July 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 5, text 29, Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness, page 255. Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati Bhoktarang Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati Bhoktarang Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati Bhoktarang Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati Bhoktarang Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati Bhoktarang Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati. Anyone online? Chat?
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Suridam Sarvabhutanam
Suridam Sarvabhutanam
Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati
Gyatva Mam Shantimrichati. Anyone else? Guess not. Bhoktaram, the beneficiary, yagya of sacrifices, tapasam, and penances and austerities, sarvaloka, of all planets and the demigods thereof, Maha Ishwaram, the Supreme Lord, Suridam, the benefactor, Sarva, of all, Bhutanam, the living entities, Gyatva, thus knowing, Mam, me, Lord Krishna, Shantim, relief from material pangs, Richati, one achieves. Translation. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world, but they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything for the transcendental service of the Lord, because He is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than He. He is greater than the greatest of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, the Shvetashvara Upanishad 6.7, the Supreme Lord is described as Tamishwaranam Padamam Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of the material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are His subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This fifth chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as karma yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how karma yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is bhakti yoga, and Dhyāna-yoga is a path leading to bhakti yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute. And the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya, or illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter. For it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which in every respect helps one control the senses and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage, or Brahma Nirvana. The Eightfold Yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is a gradual process of elevation in the process of, and this is the Eightfold system, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Let's translate those. Yama, those are the don'ts, what you have to not refrain from doing. Niyama are what you need to do. Asana is sitting posture. Pranayama, control of the breath. Pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses from sense objects. Dharana, concentration. Dhyana, meditation. And Samadhi, full absorption in the object of meditation. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Thus, in the Bhagavad purports to the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of karma yoga, or action in Krishna consciousness. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And yet we find that so many of these verses, in the last 10 verses, talked about Brahma Nirvana. You remember that? Text 24 has Brahma Nirvana. Text 25, Brahma Nirvana. And so what is this Brahma Nirvana? Well, Prabhupada calls it being self-realized. What is it? Liberation in the Supreme. Liberation in the Supreme. So, but Brahma, it refers to the Brahman effulgence. It refers to the first stage of God realization. Very important to understand the different stages. In the 2nd chapter, 1st canon, which I often refer to, there's a verse describing what is the ultimate goal of life. What is the Dharma? You know, it's all about Dharma. What does that lead you to? And the verse goes like this: Vadanti tat tat pavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmaeti paramatneti bhagavaniti shabdite. So Vadanti tat tattvavidas. The tattvavida are those who know. They know the truth. They realize souls. They say, Vadanti tat, they say that absolute truth is known in these 3 phases. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So what is that? Well, we ourselves are Brahman, right? Aham Brahmasmi. These are one of the little phrases you learn when you first join the ashram. Aham Brahmasmi. Now the Mayavadis say the same thing. I am spirit. But they don't go beyond that. We're just spirit. But what activities do we have? What does that mean? You see, well, what it means is, basically, is that we're not the physical body. The body is an ever-changing machine very intricate, amazing machine that we've been given in order to interact with this material world. But clearly we're not the body, because we're the same person we were 10 years ago. I think all of us are more than 10 years old. And yet the body's changed. Who can deny it? But we're the same person. And if you take it, the famous verse, Dehinosmin yata dehe komadam yobanang jana, just as the living entity, the soul, passes through different stages of the body, from childhood to adolescence and middle age and so forth. But the soul remains the same. Similarly, the soul will go into another body when the body finally breaks down, as all machines must eventually. It's amazing how it lasts 60, 70 years, unless you get in a crash on the I-5 or something. There's all kinds of ways you can leave early, but whether you die young or die old, you don't die. It's only your body that dies. Okay, so that's the first thing. So, but still, it's so much suffering, And in other words, birth is not a pleasant thing. We've mercifully forgotten it, but it's not a nice experience. And certainly getting old is not nice. All the things that you used to do and enjoy, you can't enjoy, or you still try to enjoy, but they cause pain. And finally, death, Then everything you try to achieve in the material sphere is taken away from you. Your name, your fame, your family, your money, your prestige, whatever you think, your memories, it's gone. As Krishna says, Mrityu sarvaharascha. As death, I take everything away. So Prabhupada expands on that. It's a very nice commentary, that the devotee sees Krishna at death, perfect, pure devotee, and he goes back to Godhead. Krishna takes him back to Godhead. The atheist, non-deity, sees Krishna as death, the ultimate power, taking everything away. You can't do anything about it. Yeah. And Krishna says, I am death. I come as death. Mrityu sarvaharascha. That's what it means. So this is what's the way out of this conundrum? Because otherwise it's just like Krishna talks about, those who aspire to go to the heavenly planets. He talks about that. I forget the first verse. Some worship me indirectly by worshiping the demigods. And if they succeed nicely, then they can go. So a few can go actually to the heavenly planets. And then he has this famous verse, Tetam bhuktva svargalokam vishalam chine punye martya lokam vishandi. So they enjoy for a long time compared to here, thousands of years, millions of years, whatever. Vishala. Vishala means vast enjoyments. Tetam bhuktva svargalokam vishalam. All right, I got it made. But what about the second line of the verse? Chine punye martya lokam vishanti. It's all in the material world. It may be a much nicer place, you live much longer, but it's still material. It means it comes to an end. In your stay there comes to an end. So when your pious credits that you earned here by sacrifice and austerity and charity and planting fruit trees and all this good karma, okay, you get up to the heavenly planet, and now I got it made. No, you don't. It's still time limited. It may be 1,000 years, millions of years, whatever, but there's an end to it. And then when it runs out, boom, you come down again to the world of death, Martya Loka. Krishna doesn't mince words, you see. So then he says, so what's the conclusion? Evam trihidam anupamana gatagatam kama kama labante. You're going and coming, you're going and coming. You're not going back to Godhead, you're going and coming. Back home, home, back to this earthly world where you came from. And who knows what the next life you may not, be so astute as to practice the austerities and penances and the mantras and the karma. You may just be an ordinary karmi, and then you may lose the human form of life. So this is not good. This is not the proper aspiration for a wise spirit soul. So the whole thing is knowledge. You have to get knowledge. Hare Krishna. Okay. You have to get knowledge of, first of all, who you are. What is the possibilities of advancement in this world? Okay, there's material advancement, but that's obviously just going to keep you on this merry-go-round of birth, old age, disease, and death. Is there a way out? Is there a way out of this old age, disease, and death, and this frustration and this madness, in the material world. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita says. Yes, there is. And here, this is such a nice verse. Prabhupada called this, as he mentioned in the purport, the peace formula. So we don't just want to go to Brahma Nirvana. That's not what we want. We're looking for something beyond Brahma Nirvana. So the second, Brahmeti Paramatmeti, the next phase of realization is the super soul. Now that's more personal, you're realizing the super soul within the heart. But you're not really realizing your full swarup. Because what relation can you have with the super soul? It's not like you can go cavorting in the forest like you can with Krishna. It's more like the yogic thing. The yogis, they aspire to meditate on the super soul. And you can achieve liberation, again, for some time, but that's also not secure because you haven't realized your swarup. You're not situated in your original function. You're just passively, meditating on the super soul. So it's an exalted state of consciousness, but it's not the final goal. So you have Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the full manifestation of the absolute truth. And that's where you get into the 64 qualities of Krishna, the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. You don't hear about the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the super soul. And certainly not of the Brahmajyoti. There's no name, there's no, like that. And for devotees, that Brahmajyoti is like going to hell. This is the verdict of Prabodhananda Sarati. Kaivalyam narakayate. That's exactly what those two words means. Brahman, Kaivalya, merging, it's like going to hell. Why? Because there's no bhakti. There's no Bhagavan, there's no bhakta, there's no bhakti. Let me go to hell as long as I can serve Krishna. This is, that's the idea. So here you say, I am the ultimate enjoyer of all the sacrifices, all the austerities. I am the Ishvara, the ultimate controller of all the planets. And so this is, he's really powerful, How does he feel about us? Suridam sarvabhutana. Surit is a very important word. Prabhupada actually when he wrote his letters, he would end up, your ever well-wisher. That's a surit. Someone who always has your best interest at heart. That's Krishna. So sarva bhutanam, all living entities, including us, he's the best friend. One who understands this achieves real peace. Now, of course, if you really understand it, you have to live according to the understanding, meaning that you're ready to. He's the original enjoyer. Well, okay, I'll perform these austerities, but I'll do it for Krishna. Like that wonderful book distributors that go out. That's an austerity I tried to perform and I really couldn't ultimately do it. I didn't get over the hump, But anyway, but that's so pleasing to Krishna. That's why those who are really serious in that austerity, they're always blissful devotees. Because Krishna says, at the end of the book, he says, there's no devotee more dear to me than those who are really working to spread my message, So, but especially the suridam, that, it's like if someone is, there's always this fear that they're gonna jack up the surveillance, When you may remember some years ago, I forget his name all the time, but he escaped to Russia. But he revealed that the government is monitoring all the phone calls and all the emails and like that. What? I thought it says in the Constitution they're not allowed to do that, So, but why don't you think that's good? Because they might not have your best interest at heart, at mind. They can, someone will get hold of that information and sell it, and they'll blackmail you or something, right? So that's why it's in this. They're not allowed to do that unless they have cause. I forget, that there's something suspicious here. They get a warrant for searching your apartment or something. So surveillance. But now with electronics, it's so risky. Why? We don't trust them. But here, the greatest surveillance is the super soul. He knows everything about everything. Everything. But he's your best friend, so you can trust him. So that I always think of that when I read this verse. And then the peace. And we have so many wonderful examples in the Shastra, of great devotees who under tremendous duress are still equipoised, whether it's Haridas Thakur or Ambarish, or even modern day, Srila Prabhupada went through so much, but kept his equanimity and his trust. So this is Krishna's plan, he's testing us, whatever, And so because of the love and the trust you have in Krishna, you can undertake so many different things. And then when he proves that, you're protected, that just deepens your faith. So this is such an important verse, and we should try to meditate on it. Okay, I think that if there's no questions, we'll begin this next chapter.
Quick question.
Put it in. There may be somebody.
Hare Krishna. So when one dies, is your memory actually taken away? Like if you take another, obviously, birth, or is it taken away, or is it covered by Maha Maya?
Well, it depends. When you die, there's a lot of stuff that comes after that. But as you die, when we actually leave the body, according to people who survived, near-death experiences, your whole life goes before you. You're going to remember, all these different things. So, but clearly, if you're destined to be a human being, assuming, so then you go into another womb, and you're sleeping, for Prabhupada always says, I think 7 months, but he's working on the Indian calendar, where months are always 30 days long, but it's not so, so he says 10 months. 10 months later you get born, because you add them all up. So 9 months you're unconscious. No, for 6.5 months, and then you wake up. You're in the womb, all right, and then you're kicking and everything. You're awake. I had a little story to tell. Long ago, before I think before even your time, Suresh, there was this one couple, and we would do a program in their house. I forget where it was, and it's in the San Diego area, and it would take a while to get there. So it was distance. Maybe it was up in Encinitas or Escondido, maybe Encinitas. And at a certain point, it was obvious she was with child, So I told her, I have this recording of the whole Bhagavad Gita, which I can give you, and you can play it for the baby, and it'll come out and he'll be chanting shlokas. No, I didn't say that. But I said it'll benefit him, So she got the tapes, and she was playing them regularly, So eventually the kid, takes birth, and they would come to the temple, and she would be carrying the kid, And sometimes I would be leading a kirtan, and so he'd be running up and down the temple, And the kid will obviously recognize my voice, As soon as I started singing, he would. Now, he wasn't chanting shlokas. I mean, it wasn't like Prahlad where he became. But it was interesting that you can hear, a lot can go on here. So I'm going to maybe tell Naimisha, he said maybe she can get those tapes. Anyway, let's begin. So this is the Dhyāna-yoga, the famous Dhyāna-yoga chapter. Shri Bhagavana Vacha Anashita Karma Palam Karyam Karma Karoti Yaha Sannyāsī cha yogī cha Nanaragni Nachakriyaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. Purport. In this chapter, the Lord explains that the process of the Eightfold Yoga system is a means to control the mind and the senses. However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in the age of Kali. The present age. Although the Eightfold Yoga system is recommended in this chapter, the Lord emphasizes that the process of karma yoga, or acting in Krishna consciousness, is better. Everyone acts in this world to maintain his family and their paraphernalia, but no one is working without some self-interest, some personal gratification, be it concentrated or extended. The criterion of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness, and not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. To act in Krishna consciousness is the duty of every living entity because all are constitutionally parts and parcels of the Supreme. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The limbs of the body do not act for self-satisfaction, but for the satisfaction of the complete whole. Similarly, the living entity who acts for satisfaction of the supreme whole and not for personal satisfaction is the perfect sannyāsī, the perfect yogi. The sannyāsīs sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties, and therefore they cease to perform agnihotra yagyas, fire sacrifices. But actually they are self-interested because their goal is to become one with the impersonal Brahman. Such a desire is greater than any material desire, but it is not without self-interest. Similarly, the mystic yogi who practices the yoga system with half-open eyes, ceasing all material activities, desires some satisfaction for his personal self. But a person acting in Krishna consciousness works for the satisfaction of the whole without self-interest. A Krishna-conscious person has no desire for self-satisfaction. His criterion of success is the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus he is the perfect sannyāsī or perfect yogi. Lord Chaitanya, the highest perfectional symbol of renunciation, prays in this way. Nadanang najanang nasundarim kapitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavata bhaktidahayutuki tvahi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want only is the causeless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth. So, we're launching in this Dhyāna-yoga process, but right in the first purport, Barbara said, well, we really can't do it, not in this age so well. And so the whole point is he's covering all the bases. Karma yoga is perfectly integrated into Krishna consciousness. I mean, karma yoga can also be performed just to avoid entanglement. It can be part of your effort to go to the heavenly planets, performing pious activities. So and there's a whole section of the Vedas, the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, which more or less caters to one's material desire to go to the heavenly planets. It's not for us, It's because we have a higher goal. We want to go to the spiritual planets where there's no return. So karma yoga, but karma yoga in the sense of being selfless and working for Krishna and giving the fruits and taking pleasure in pushing on, satisfying Krishna by pushing on his mission. This is what Arjuna ultimately does, right? He was aghast of being engaged in this war. He didn't want to do it because on the other side are his beloved guru, his beloved grandfather figure, and so many friends and relatives. And so the usual material reason for getting in a battle to conquer the others and win the kingdom was not there, because it'll be soaked with the blood of his people he loves. So what's the point? So but then he realizes that his real motive in fighting the war should be wholly and solely just because it's what Krishna wants. It's part of his plan to rid the world of the demonic forces. You remember, those who know Krishna's Leela, how Krishna wiped out the whole armies of Jarasandha 18 times, right? And Jarasandha just kept coming back, coming back. So, but Krishna is fully aware, and we're also fully aware from reading the Shastra, that nobody died. All of these soldiers, because they're killed by Krishna, were benefited. You can imagine why, because that darn Krishna again. So they're thinking completely absorbed in Krishna, even though animically. So that itself benefited. They're not going to go back to Goloka Vrindavan, but they're benefited from it. So now this chapter is Krishna goes into detail here, and to give it away, eventually Arjuna says, I can't do it. And so Krishna says, don't worry, yoginam bhapi sarvesham. The last verse says, the best yogi is always one who's always thinking me within his heart and worshiping me with great and transcendental love. And Arjuna says, oh, that's me. I'm always thinking of Krishna. So the next chapter gives us more practical instruction of how we can gradually learn to see Krishna in everything. All right, should we go on? Yang sannyāsamati prahu yogam tam vidhi pandava naya sannyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kashtana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Purport: real sannyas yoga or bhakti means that one should know his constitutional position as the living entity and act accordingly. The living entity has no separate independent identity. He is the marginal energy of the Supreme. When he is entrapped by material energy, he is conditioned. And when he is Krishna conscious or aware of the spiritual energy, then he is in his real and natural state of life. Therefore, when one is in complete knowledge, one ceases all material sense gratification or renounces all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. This is practiced by the yogis who restrain the senses from material attachment. But a person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is simultaneously a sannyāsī and a yogi. The purpose of knowledge and of restraining the senses, as prescribed in the Jnana and Yoga processes, is automatically served in Krishna consciousness. If one is unable to give up the activities of his selfish nature, then Jnana and Yoga are of no avail. The real aim is for a living entity to give up all selfish satisfaction and to be prepared to satisfy the Supreme. A Krishna-conscious person has no desire for any kind of self-enjoyment. He is always engaged for the enjoyment of the Supreme. One who has no information of the Supreme must therefore be engaged in self-satisfaction, because no one can stand on the platform of inactivity. All purposes are perfectly served by the practice of Krishna consciousness. So the real advancement of Krishna consciousness comes when you're tasting more and more of the pleasure of giving Krishna pleasure. And the wonderful thing about it is that there's no time limit on it. It's not like limited. You can do that. That's why probably 24 hours a day, to be Krishna conscious. Chanting 24 hours a day. I'm not sure how that can happen unless you chant in your dreams, which is possible. But the point is, the more, if you just meditate on that wonderful verse by Rupa Goswami, where the ladder from faith to love, adhau shraddha tatak sang bhajana kriya. So he's giving it, the different steps. So it begins with some faith. You have to have some an original faith in the process, and that's true of anything you do. If you want to get a degree, you have to have faith. Okay, if I try really hard and I pay and I do it and everything, then I'll get the degree and I'll have the. And at the end I'll be able to get a job or I'll become a doctor or whatever, right? So the faith has to be there. And so by association with people in Krishna consciousness, this is, who have made some advancement and who show a peacefulness and a joy and a happiness to something that you want, and you're willing to listen, how did you achieve that? Because you're basically like me. In other words, someone who is born in the same place, but is just... So that kind of association gives us the preliminary faith to try the process, which usually means chanting a couple of rounds a day, and giving up sinful activities. And there's a result from that. You can feel more peaceful, Oftentimes, just the anxiety that comes from living a so-called normal life in this world, can be relieved from that, because you have another platform of consciousness. If you're actually chanting nicely, and it's almost impossible to really be depressed, because it's Krishna. It's such a nice thing, chanting. It's Krishna who's anandamaya abhyasat, who's always full of bliss. And if you're chanting, then he's pleased, and he's giving you bliss from within. That's the science. So it's a whole different level of aspiration and inquiry. But this idea of always being curious, because remember, very beginning of the Vedanta Sutta, Tato Brahma Jigyasa, that having come to the human form of life, one should be inquisitive about the absolute truth. Not about all these relative truths that you usually, what's the price of this, what's the price of that, where's the nearest bowling alley, or whatever it may be. There's always something you're asking. materially. But none of that can really satisfy you. But if you ask the questions that Sanatana Goswami asked Lord Chaitanya, who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I suffering? If I don't know the answer to these questions, what's the use of all my erudition? You see, that's the point. So coming to this little class, tuning in on the tube there, and hitting the right buttons so you get on dandavats.com. This is a total Brahma Jigyasa. But the question is, we can't give it up. We always have to be inquiring and building our Krishna consciousness, learning newer verses to chant, whatever. And in this way, you get renounced. You lose the taste for all the other things that prevent you from being Krishna conscious, which is basically what material life is. So that's there. He's quoting here, Nadanam Nadanam Nasundari. The problem here that's going to develop with the yogis is that usually the yogis, from all that austerity, because they're mukti kami, oftentimes they want liberation, or siddhi kami, perfection. Wouldn't you like to be able to reach out and get anything, Suresh? What do you think? At least with your good arm. Fort Knox, anybody? That's one of the cities. Prabhupada said he had a friend who told him that he knew a yogi and he was a friend of the family. So the yogi said, well, what do you want? So let me have pomegranates from Afghanistan. Apparently they grow very nice. So he said, go into the next room. So he goes into the bedroom, and there on the bed is a freshly broken branch with a bunch of pomegranates on it. So these yogis can do this magic, And then they think, oh, let me go to America. Then I can really get. And they came, and they performed some magic, and they got so many followers. But they're basically cheating their followers, So this Dhyāna-yoga, I always think of Radhanath Swami when I think of this Dhyāna-yoga. If you read his book, what is it called? Journey Home. He recounts that, he was into yoga and he was very determined. He was, you don't know this, most people don't know this, he was a champion wrestler in high school. And I was thinking of going out in the wrestling team when I was in high school. Then I learned what they have to do in order to get in shape, running every day and all this. Not for me, But he was so determined, he was a champion wrestler. So that same determination, he turned to becoming a yogi. He actually went to India. He hitchhiked. Somehow he got there, And he didn't have any papers, but somehow they let him in, You heard the story. And he went up to the Himalayas and he did meditation, But he wasn't getting what he was looking for. So he came down and they had this famous first encounter with Srila Prabhupada, I think at the Bombay Pandal, right? You know the story. Prabhupada picked him out of the crowd, sitting in a crowd of 10,000 and come and sit on the stage, and he could see. So that determination, when you transfer it into becoming a devotee and being renounced, it can be very fruitful. So that you can see it in his. But here we'll see that after all of this description of the process of yoga, Arjun, representing us, says, I don't think we can do that. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadadham tasyaham niguham manye vairi vitadaskuram. See, he knows these slokas. So the controlling the mind it's so restless and powerful. Chanchalam. He wants to go here, there, and everything, and it's dragging you. It's like trying to control the wind. Imagine that wind that blew, that started those fires up in LA. You couldn't control it. It just caused so much havoc in these hurricanes. So on the basis of that, Arjun said, I don't think I can do it. He said, yes, you can. Just said, with practice, Well, okay, but what if I fail? He's not very hopeful. That's okay. You get born in a family, continue next life, And all in all, Arjun wasn't very enthusiastic. And so, as I mentioned in the last verse, he says, don't worry, you're my friend. That's much better than any of this yoga stuff. But then for us, he starts giving in the next chapter. I always like the first verse of the next chapter gives us a practical way. Maya sakta manaparta. Now I'm going to teach you a method by which your mind can naturally become attached to me. You see, not by force of will, but just understanding that when you taste water, that's me because it's my energy, and you're also my energy. So and that's the first step in God realization. And so and then the chapter goes on, and Bahunam Jamanamante Gyanamam Padyate. So many important verses in the 7th chapter. And but this is, very interesting, because there's many aspects of this Dhyāna-yoga that we can incorporate into our practice. Not eating too much, not eating too little, that's very important. Oh, and I want to recommend one thing. There's a wonderful series of lectures by Srila Prabhupada called the Yoga System Tapes, and it's all about this chapter. And most of the lectures are given, many of the lectures are given in LA during 1970, which is kind of a special period in the movement. Prabhupada stayed in LA for 8 months straight. And so the devotees were joining every day. And Vishnu Jan was taking them out on Harinam. And Prabhupada, having all these devotees, he would send them out. This is how many of the temples in America were started. He sent them out to New Mexico, he sent them to Oregon, Portland, and all this. We wonder where these temples came from. They came from devotees in LA being trained up and being sent out. So that's where he was giving these lectures. So it was a wonderful audience, very responsive. Prabhupada was really into it and fired up. So if you're interested, I can send you the links to those, and it's worth hearing. And also one other note, which I keep forgetting. There's one verse. I think each year I write an offering. There's a book called the Tributes, Prabhupada Tributes book now, which is just for Prabhupada disciples. And so they write me, at the proper time and said, we need your offering, so, okay. So I think this year I was giving a quote about the value of hearing the actual voice of the realized soul. There's a certain quality to the speaking with the conviction and the realization. And there's a verse in the 4th canto describing how the voice of the Acharya has a special potency because it's in contact with the saffron mercy particles strewn on the lotus feet of Krishna. And so you get that, And it's like, I can memorize verses and do all these things, but I'm not, I'm not pure devotee. But when you eat something that's really there, he's speaking from that platform, it has a tremendous impact if you're open to it. So it's a little difficult sometimes to understand, but after a while you can understand everything Prabhupada says, And there are now transcripts in any way. We used to have in this temple, once a week, without fail, a Prabhupada lecture. And I would I had actually bought this screen. This screen, actually, this is not the screen. I broke that one by dropping it. But the screen that was hanging there for a long time was taken from a stand-up screen that I bought, for the express purpose of projecting from the Veda base the Prabhupada's transcript, so that you could feel those who couldn't understand exactly, But now we have so many class givers, But anyway, on one's own, one can do that, and it's very beneficial. All right, one more. Did I do 2? 3 am I? Arudukshomaner yogam. Karma karana muchyate yogharudhasya tasyaiva shamak karana muchyate. For one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Purport: the process of linking oneself with the Supreme is called yoga. It may be compared to a ladder for attaining the topmost spiritual realization. This ladder begins from the lowest material condition of the living entity and rises up to perfect self-realization in pure spiritual life. According to various elevations, different parts of the ladder are known by different names. But all in all, the complete ladder is called yoga and may be divided into 3 parts, namely Jnana-yoga, Dhyāna-yoga, and Bhakti-yoga. The beginning of the ladder is called the Yoga Rurukshu stage, and the highest rung is called Yoga Rudha. Concerning the Eightfold Yoga system, attempts in the beginning to enter into meditation through the regulative principles of life and practice of different sitting postures, which are more or less bodily exercises, are considered fruitive material activities. All such activities lead to achieving perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses. When one is accomplished in the practice of meditation, he ceases all disturbing mental activities. A Krishna-conscious person, however, is situated from the beginning on the platform of meditation because he always thinks of Krishna. And being constantly engaged in the service of Krishna, he is considered to have ceased all material activities. Well, this is pretty hopeful, you know. From the beginning, he's situated in the platform of meditation, he always thinks of Krishna. Not so easy to always think of Krishna, but we should strive for that. And so, Prabhupada is going to constantly bring in the bhakti aspect, you know, to these. But Krishna is going to describe it in a fair amount of detail. And there's some, you know, and especially when we get to text 22, I think it is, where he's describing 22 to 23, the state of samadhi, which is like, whoa, that's amazing. In the stage of perfection called trance, samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self, capital S. I made sure that's S, capital S, self. We want to see the Supreme Self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining in this, he thinks there's no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So that's like, well, that seems worth striving for, but we're not going to get it by Dhyāna-yoga, but we can get it by Bhakti Yoga, you see. All right, a couple of poems for dessert. We'll be on text 4 tomorrow? Okay. All right, let's see. Well, we had Nadanang Najanang Nasundarim. How about the verse after that? Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame babambudho kripaya tava pada pankaja stitadhuli sadvishang vichintaya. Your servant for eternity, I lost my true identity and fell into this horrid sea of birth and death, O Lord. O Nanda's son, please hear my plea. By your sweet grace consider me a speck of dust upon your lotus feet forevermore. Tears streaming from my eyes, my voice choked with bliss, the hair upon my body standing up in happiness. When will all these signs of rapture decorate my limbs as I chant your holy name, the monarch of all hymns? Every moment drags on like 1,000,000 years or more. From the rain clouds of my eyes the tears in torrents pour. This whole creation is nothing but a vast and joyless void. O Govinda, by her absence I am being destroyed. Let Madhava embrace this maid who's fallen at his feet. Or let him trample me on my ardent hopes' defeat, by never giving me a chance to see him anywhere, thus shattering my heart and plunging me into despair. You see, he is a restless libertine and not a saint, so let him act in any way he likes without restraint. Yet though his cruel and crooked ways may cause me constant woe, Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. It's from the recording. Yeah. You heard that recording once before, huh?
I loved it.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Anyway. All right. Shall we do it again? Oh, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,